In this video, I'm going to talk about how to borrow from your retirement account during this pandemic. Now, I'm not only going to talk about how to borrow from that retirement account, but also how to reduce your taxes. And this is for small business owners and individuals, which could put thousands back in your pocket. Now, all of this is coming from a proposed bill for the pandemic relief. Now, I've talked about this in previous videos, and I'm going to put a link in the description at the bottom so you can watch those videos. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over exactly how to borrow those dollars, how to reduce your taxes, but most importantly, examples so you can see how this all works. But before we do, if this is your first time at our channel or you haven't subscribed, click on the subscribe button at the bottom. My name is Travis Sickle, certified financial planner, helping you reach your financial goals. So at this point, you might be strapped for cash, probably while you're watching this video, and you want to tap your retirement plan. So there's a proposed bill, the CARES Act, that is hopefully going to get signed into law very soon, which will allow you to access your retirement plan for up to $100,000. Now, this is coming from the CARES Act, which is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act. Now, this bill can allow you to access up to $100,000, and it's in the individual section. So there's two sections of this bill, the small business section and the individual section. Now, the individual section, section 2103, specifically says that you can access up to $100,000. You just have to repay it over a 3-year period, which is something we've seen before. We saw it during Hurricane Irma, where we could tap our retirement dollars, get those dollars out of the retirement plan to use it to give us relief, and then put it back over a 3-year period. So there's a bit of a strategy here. Because of the timing right now, because you haven't filed your taxes, there's a bit of a strategy that you can still tap your retirement account or leverage your retirement account and help you reduce your 2019 taxes at the same time. So there's two variations of this strategy. So one is if you have cash on hand, and the other is if you just don't, but you have to have a Roth IRA. And both require that you can put additional dollars into a retirement plan. So I'm going to go through both scenarios, and I'm going to put a link in the description at the bottom to the timing of both of these examples that I'm about to walk you through. So you can just jump to the one that works for you. So one is going to be if you have cash with a limit, and the other is going to be if you just have a Roth IRA plus a limit to your retirement plans. And the limit means you can put more money into your retirement plan. And it depends on what retirement plan you have in order to meet those limits or how much more you can contribute. So this first scenario I'm calling the cash plus the limit. And you'll see how this works. So we have cash plus the limit. Now, because the bill said that we can make these payments over a 3-year period back into the retirement plan or how it's being set up, I'm going to use an example of $6,000 that you're contributing $6,000 on an annual basis. So for the next 3 years, that's going to equal $18,000. 6 times 3, 18, $18,000. So we have $6,000 that we're putting into our retirement plan on an annual basis. And remember what I said before, that we have cash in the bank, but we're going through it. So we need to get more cash or have access to more cash. So here's how we can do it. If we have the full $18,000, we can put it into our retirement plan. Now, obviously, if you have a traditional IRA or you're an individual, you're not gonna have access to larger limits to larger retirement plans like the SEP IRA or the solo 401k or even a profit sharing contribution to a 401k, but you could still use this for a traditional IRA. It's just a reduced amount. If you're married filing jointly, you can always double the numbers and look at it that way. But for this example, $18,000 into one of the retirement accounts, whether it's a SEP or a 401k. Now, I have done videos on the contribution limits. So if you want to know what the contribution limits on the different plans are, just check out some of my other videos. But for the $18,000 is what we have. So that's what we're doing. We're going to put $18,000 into the retirement plan. Now, here's why you would do this, because the bill allows us to access up to $100,000 in our retirement accounts. But we don't really want to do that because the money that you have in there was probably invested, and you don't want to sell because you're locking in those losses at that point. But if you don't have to sell, you can still gain access to it. So we're going to make the contribution for 2019, and then you can pull the money out So you could still have the full $18,000, and we've reduced our taxes. How did we do that? Because it was a pre-tax contribution for 2019. So what does that really look like? If we have for 2019, depending on what your tax bracket's at, if you're in the 12% tax bracket, that's going to be $2,160. If you're in the 22% tax bracket, that's going to be $3,960. And if you're in the 24% tax bracket, that's going to be $4,320. Now, that is the amount that you're going to reduce your tax liability by just deploying this strategy. And the way I'm looking at it is if you're already contributing $6,000 on an annual basis, you have the $18,000 in the bank, well, you can do that for this year to reduce your tax liability. And why would you do that? Because in 2019, you have to assume that you're going to do better in 2019, unfortunately, than you will in 2020. So you're kind of offsetting your taxes and you're taking them from 2019 and moving them forward. And the reason that is because next year when you make that payment back, or in this scenario, in this example, you're going to make that payment, which would be your regular contribution. So you're not going to get an additional tax deduction next year. But if you earn a little bit less money, then you might actually be better off using this strategy because you're going to take that tax liability from potentially a higher earning year and put it on a lower earning year. So here's another way to look at that. Instead of having just $18,000 in the bank, you've boosted it by that exact percentage. So at 12%, 22%, or 24%. So if you're in the 24% tax bracket, you've just boosted your cash by 24% because you've boosted it through taxes, which you're going to get back in a refund or reduced tax liability. Now, on the other side, you have the Roth IRA. So if you have a Roth IRA, and let's say you've been making Roth contributions, all the contributions you put into a Roth IRA, you can pull those out. So even if you've been doing this for a decade, you can pull all the contributions out of that Roth IRA. But it's not something that you want to do because if they're invested, they're probably down right now and you don't want to sell out. But you can take the stock positions or the mutual funds or whatever you have, ETF, doesn't matter, and you can flip those into a traditional IRA, or in this instance, up to your limit. So it could be $6,000 or $7,000 depending on your age. And that still relies on the limit. So you can't do more than the limit. But if you're a small business owner and you don't have any cash on hand, but you have a bunch of money in the Roth IRA because, hey, the Roth IRA is great because it gives us tax deferral, tax-free growth, but it doesn't reduce our tax liability today. And if you need relief right now, this is an opportunity that you can flip it back into a traditional IRA. Now, this is not a recharacterization. The recharacterization would require that it was in a traditional IRA to begin with to go over to the Roth to go back to the traditional. This is just taking the money out of the Roth IRA and then putting it into the traditional IRA. Now, if you made contributions in 2019 to the Roth IRA, those dollars you can pull out and put into the traditional IRA. And again, that's not a recharacterization. So those contributions, your contributions can go into a traditional IRA. And if you have the availability to take one of the other small business retirement plans, you could do the same thing with the SEP or the 401k. So if you have that money in the Roth IRA, you can take it out or take those positions. You don't even have to sell out of them. You just take those positions and put it into the pre-tax account. Now, there are two things that you need to be aware of and consider before you do the strategy. Number one, do you think that your earnings are going to be less in 2020 because of the pandemic versus 2019? And number two, which is way more important than number one, you have to wait for this bill to get signed into law. Because if it doesn't, then you can't access these dollars tax and penalty free. So it really kills the strategy. So you have to wait for this to get put into law before you do it. So I hope this has helped. And I hope this gets signed into law so you can use this strategy and get access to these dollars. And if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and leave your comments down at the bottom.